You can be working 15 hours a day, and then the next thing you know, the other things are being sacrificed, and that usually doesn't end well.
Well, and the biggest key to that is really understanding that everything that you say yes to, you're saying no to something else.
Oh.
And you don't have to verbalize
You got to save some of these coaching tips for when people are paying.
I try to give them away, and ultimately, the benefits, obviously, of having a coach are massive. I truly believe that. But as much as I can help anybody, you really do. You find yourself that you'll say yes to something, and because you don't have to verbalize that no, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to your kid's soccer game, for example, and you're choosing to work, you've said no to that soccer game. And when you physically have to say that, that can be difficult.
Welcome to the Realty FC podcast. I'm Chris Hild, your host, and beside me here is Michelle Lewis. We are both the brokers here at Realty FC. How you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing well, Chris.
Good. Hey, anything interesting going on with you today?
Oh, wow. Well, we've had a lot of excitement.
Okay. I like that. Excitement's good.
Yeah, my dad, he just turned 80.
Oh, man.
We had a big family surprise party for him.
Oh, surprises at 80. I mean,
I know, you got to be careful about that. But it was nice. He had his whole family there. Everybody was there.
Okay. Did you guys have it at your house, or was it?
No, actually, we went to my brother's, and we had it there because that's closer to where everybody's at. So Dad got to see all of his babies, all of his grandbabies, and all of his great-grandbabies all at one time.
Okay, great. So, well, look, if you're looking to have another party, we're going to be talking to somebody today that just might have a venue where you could have that party.
That's what I understand, and that's exciting.
Let's find out who it is.
It sounds good.
All right, welcome to the show, Cort. We got Cort Maddox here with us, and we're excited to dive into what he does. And so before we begin, Cort, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I started a coaching business. I've been a coach now for 9.5 years, surprisingly.
Right. Yep. He helps us out. He was a coach for Realty FC for a while, so got us going in the right direction. So appreciate that.
That was years ago now.
Yeah, well, probably about 9.5 years ago.
It was close to it.
Okay.
So learned a lot over the last 9.5 years, and certainly excited to continue that trend. And
awesome.
Recent owner, partner of Faithbrook Barn and Vineyard down in Luray. So,
Yeah, so before you go on, let's talk about that. Talk about your experience with that. I mean, because let's let the cat out of the bag. Realty FC was represented you as the buyer's agent for that.
Right.
You and your group. Do you want to talk about your partners? Your partners' names? You want to drop their names real quick, or they want to stay off the show?
I don't know. But,
all right, let's just leave it at Cort Maddox.
Yeah, we'll just talk about me. That's fine. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. But no, you were a fantastic help. Not that I need to, I think, sing your praises, but I will, just because it was such a great experience. And it certainly wasn't the easiest of experiences, and that wasn't because of anything that anybody specifically done. But I don't know if anybody's aware, but financing an event venue right now is not the easiest thing to do. It's somewhat difficult to get approval.
Yep. But hey, if you're wanting to buy a venue, get in touch with me. We know who to contact.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So great. So business coach for 9.5 years, and just proud new owner of the Vineyard.
Correct.
The wedding venue in the Vineyard. So great, good stuff. And I will mention the Vineyard. It's got amazing views. It's in Luray. So if you guys are thinking about it, it's not just wedding receptions or wedding events that happen there. I mean, talk a little bit about what else you can do there.
Yeah, so we're looking at corporate events. We're looking at weddings. Actually got contacted this morning from a photographer that wants to do Christmas mini sessions for their clients. Nice. And so they may be coming in towards the end of November. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the sky's the limit when it comes to a resource like that. So anybody out there has an idea that they want, a venue for, I think, you can't go wrong with that location, because the views are just priceless. All right. So we'll kind of change gears back to the business coach. What inspired you to become a coach? I mean, you must have enjoyed it, I guess, right?
Well, so I was in finance for 17 years, and actually was friends with a couple of other business coaches, and they kept talking about and having these workshops, and you'd talk to people that had been in coaching, and everybody was so just super interested and anxious about their success and just excited. And I just decided that I wanted to be a part of that. And they had asked me for about a year to come in and talk to them about becoming a coach and what that could look like. And I was in my corporate ladder status. I knew where my next rung was. I knew where I was headed. I finally got frustrated by just parameters and all the red tape, and said, okay,
I think a lot of people can relate to it.
Right. Yeah. You kind of get to that point where you're like, okay, let me listen. My goal was to actually shut it down. And I was just like, okay, well, I'll listen to you, but you have an hour.
Yeah.
If you don't convince me within that hour, then I'm done.
Okay.
And
must have been pretty convincing.
About half an hour into it, I was like, oh man. And I went home. I told my wife and talked to my mom. I'm a mama's boy, and so talked to her as well. My wife, my mom, my friends, everybody said, yeah, you'd be great at that. You should do that. And I was like, no, quit.
Yeah, you
quit
are
messing with me. And the rest, I guess, is history. And 9.5 years.
So, I mean, for going that long, I mean, what do you enjoy most about it, would you say?
You get to see and experience people seeing something different and realizing that just by little tweaks, it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, paradigm shifts. It definitely it helps people out. And I guess you've gotten to meet a lot of interesting people along the way.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
And what's some of the different businesses that you've coached for?
So it ranges. We've obviously worked with real estate agents. We've worked with landscapers. We've worked with doctors. We've worked with attorneys.
Okay.
Trying to think of the interior designers, marketing companies. I mean, the list goes on, and a lot of them are they're all over. I started working virtually about 5 years ago. Okay. And so if you've ever heard of this thing called COVID, when that came along, everybody said, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called Zoom? And I'm like, yeah, I've been using that for 5 years.
Sure. Yeah.
So then it just continued to go, and that actually helped blossom, because then people were really familiar with doing virtual. So,
yeah, and I know you mentioned some of the industries that you can coach, but I think again the sky's the limit. It can be anyone that could, and you never know. A little bit of advice can really put you on the right track. I can confess to that. So time management and just staying focused and finding out what you're spending a lot of your time doing during the day is sometimes pretty revealing.
Yeah.
When you have to document it. You're like, oh man, I've been laying on the couch for 2 hours. That's probably not good.
Scrolling Facebook for half the day.
Yeah, actually it was 4 hours, but 2 hours sounds better.
Well, when you think about it from a business standpoint, everybody faces the same challenges. And we all do it on a daily basis, but everybody feels like they're on an island by themselves. And just sometimes that awareness to know that you're not alone is helpful.
Yeah. And also, when you're starting your business, I think it's great to have a business coach who's been around and seen other businesses be successful with your help. Because when you first start a business, there's a whole lot of more responsibility that you just aren't prepared for, and most times, and because you're used to just doing the work, like a real estate agent. I'm used to going out selling homes and all that kind of stuff. But then when you add on that, now you're an owner, and you can relate to this. Is now you got all these other responsibilities. You got to keep track of the books. I mean, you got staff that you got to worry about. So there's a whole nother level, and being able to distinguish and differentiate that, and where to apply your time.
And you don't have anybody that is guiding you or holding you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And he definitely helped me with that. So I definitely encourage folks to at least consult and find out if it's doable for you. So as you coach, would you say you have a particular style of how you coach? Like, are you really hands-on or in your face, micromanage? I mean, what kind of style do you think?
Yeah, so what I found my style to be versus other coaches is that I get very territorial or protective of my clients. I'm protective of when they're doing things that aren't necessarily beneficial, but I'm also protective of them when they have other people that are coming in trying to take advantage of them. And so I find that works really well, because they're not willing in a lot of cases to speak up for themselves. We, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we start to sacrifice our time. And now all of a sudden we're not valuing the time. We don't set a dollar limit to it. You know, when you're out in the workforce, you get paid a certain amount per hour roughly, even if you're on salary. And that ends up being your hourly rate. Well, as business owners, that doesn't happen. You'll work 8 hours, 10 hours, 5 hours, 15 hours a day. And sometimes you get paid for it and sometimes you don't.
Right.
So, you know, I try to be very protective and make sure that when I have clients that are just donating their time, that they're putting a value on it and they're getting paid for that.
Yeah, and I remember as well what was, you know, you place a lot of emphasis on is it's not all about just business. You know, setting goals for your personal life, spiritually. I mean, there's other avenues and other aspects of, you know, how you operate. You know, a business life kind of balance, I think, is important for business owners because you can get wrapped up. You can be working 15 hours a day, and then the next thing you know, the other things are being sacrificed, and that usually doesn't end well.
Well, and the biggest key to that is really understanding that everything that you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And you don't have to you don't have to verbalize.
You got to save some of these coaching tips for when people are paying.
I try to give them away, and ultimately, the benefits, obviously, of having a coach are massive. I truly believe that. But as much as I can help anybody, but you really do. You find yourself that you'll say yes to something, and because you don't have to verbalize that no, it's a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to your kid's soccer game, for example, and you're choosing to work, you've said no to that soccer game. And when you physically have to say that, that can be difficult. So.
Yeah. No, definitely can relate to that. Right. So from your experience as a business coach, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen some of the business owners have to overcome or just face? Maybe not overcome, maybe they didn't overcome it.
Right.
You have any stories about that?
I can tell you that one of the biggest challenges, and we all face this, is people are our biggest challenge, whether it be our clients or our employees. And right now, employees are a big, huge challenge for small businesses. There's a lot of competition out there. People are hiring people just based on a whim. They have a spot they need to fill, and sometimes they fill it with the right person. Most of the time they won't, because somebody else will come in and say, hey, I know somebody. You should talk to them.
Sounds like real estate. Hey, I know somebody.
Right. That's how it goes. And then what you do is you find yourself hiring somebody that is 50% of what you really wanted, and you sacrifice the other 50%. And in typical fashion, the business owner will continue to do that 50%, but they're paying somebody to do 100%, but they're only doing 50. And 3 to 6 months later, they're going to be frustrated because that person doesn't do what they're expected to do. You knew that going in, but you decided to hire them anyhow. And so it becomes a huge challenge. And when you set those expectations, you can prevent a lot of those things. You can make sure you go through the proper hiring process and find the person that fits. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. Very, very interesting. Now, on the flip side of that, what would you say the biggest success that you've seen? And here's a softball. You talk about Realty FC. No, I'm just kidding. Some of the biggest successes that you've seen through your business coaching?
So there are a lot of them, and some of them are small, some of them are big. But I will say, so one success story that always comes to mind, and I talk to people about it quite often, is the fact that I had a client. She wasn't a client yet, but she came to me and said, Cort, I want to work with you, but I only have 3 months. And my requirement is a 4-month minimum because it takes a little bit to see the results. And so I said, okay, well then we better get working and we better work fast so that we can make sure that you have the 4th month by the time that hits. And
that's a good point.
In that case, it kind of puts you in one of those 911 situations, which we've seen businesses that are in that, but it's very difficult at times for businesses to get out of that. And in her case, she was overworked. She didn't have enough business. There were so many things that just weren't working for the business.
Sounds like a normal business owner challenge.
Right. And so we took, within that 3 months, it was at the end of the year that we got started. That next year was the best year she'd ever had in business. I mean, she doubled her previous best year. So it was a massive impact.
That's great. And that is a challenge. I mean, doing it, in a short period of time, in this case, maybe 3 months, because to form habits, you got to do something pretty consistently. And if you're only getting like a month, it's hard to break old habits sometimes. So, unless you're really willing to commit and have someone hold you accountable is also important. I think it's hard to take grasp of those changes.
Right.
For sure. Okay. So let's even dial it in a little bit more. What would you suggest to the realtors out there that might be listening to the show? Any little bit of advice that you might give to them, or what they might want to focus on to be more successful?
Well, and I hinted at it earlier.
Okay.
Everything you say yes to, you say no to something else. Again, it's that value of time. But also, you have to differentiate yourself. There has to be a differentiating factor. How many realtors do we have?
Oh, a lot.
Realtors, it's realtors, right?
Yeah.
Realtors.
Yeah. But how many of them do we have in the area, right?
It's
there are hundreds. And so if you think about it, what's the best thing that you can do to stand out? Well, you have to differentiate yourself. You have to choose your market. You have to push towards the group of people that you want to be in front of. And if you're not doing that and you're trying to be everything to everybody, one, you're not going to value your time. You're not going to have that life balance. And two, you're going to disappear in a sea of other realtors.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything about when I represented you that stood out as a characteristic that was maybe you could share with?
Yeah. So
folks?
Again, just earmuffs, but the honesty and integrity is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And that's, you and I have always had that. Obviously we developed a friendship,
Yep.
punching each other in the face or what have you.
Yeah, literally.
But it
Not because we were fighting.
right. No.
We were training.
That's right. MMA is a beautiful thing and a ton of fun. But so you develop that friendship, but when somebody has that integrity and honesty to be able to take care of you as an individual. Because it was a business deal in that case. You also sold our other home, helped us purchase this one. But it's still a transaction, but you know that somebody has your back and is pushing for you and protecting you. Same thing I do with my clients is protect them against other people, other situations.
Right.
That's how I felt whenever you and I were working together.
And that's our philosophy here. And I'm going to plug this real quick before we go on. But Realty FC, we talk about it's not just a transaction.
It's a relationship.
It's a relationship, right? And that's exactly how we want you to feel. And I think that goes for all of our agents here. So, okay.
You did a good job.
All right, thank you. Yeah, after we punched each other in the face a few times. Okay, so let's keep moving on. Are you seeing any trends emerging in any particular industry that seems to be taking over? I know, artificial intelligence is kind of at the top of, everyone's news feeds. But are you seeing anything like that? Maybe you want to talk about that, or is there anything else that's kind of coming up that's worth discussing?
So, we could mention the AI term. There's a lot of keywords out there that we could throw out there, and people would dive all over it. The reality is I'm no expert in that, and it's so new that there are so many
disclosure.
things that, there's so many things that that could be great about it. There are obviously going to be challenges with it. But a less known trend that I think people should really be paying attention to is the element of the staffing. So millennials make up the largest percentage of the workforce at this point. And the majority of them want flexibility and they want culture within the business that they work for.
Absolutely.
So the 4-day work week that has been pushed for so long is going to be something that is going to happen. And
is that for realtors too? Because I'm down for that.
I know. How do we get on that?
Right. Yeah. That's
I'm at
6
7
or 7,
right now.
right? Yeah.
Maybe 8.
Yeah. But that's going to be something that comes up. It really is. And you're going to find realtors that are going to do that. They're going to value their time, and they're not going to care about making 10 transactions a month. They're going to care about making 3 because that's all that they need in order to live their life. Because they're more geared towards experiences. And I've talked about this to other clients of mine, and it really is. It's one of those things that you have to pay attention to and look at what they want, because they're going to make up the majority of your workforce. And if you're not catering to what they want, you're not going to get them to come in. And I have a client right now that I'm hiring for. I do a lot of that for my clients. And literally the biggest benefit that we have on the docket is a 4-day work week. And we're at 38 applications at this point. We're not talking about a high-paying position. We're talking about a position that is somewhat entry level, and the applicants are coming in, and a lot of them, when I'm talking to them doing the phone screenings, are talking about, hey, that 4-day work week, is that like a Monday through Thursday? And yep, it's either Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday, depending on what you prefer. And that's why they're applying.
Right.
All right, yeah, very good. I think in real estate too, we're having to see that we're focusing on millennials and seeing kind of because that's soon going to be driving the market significantly over time. So we'll keep going. What would you say for all the aspiring entrepreneurs out there? Do you have like a recommended, like, this is what I would recommend do before you start or right when you're starting? Is there like step one? Get an LLC? I mean, do you have any recommendations as a business coach?
Yeah, so my step one is be careful.
Okay.
So the entrepreneurial bug, it can bite, and it can bite hard.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is whenever you get into that, to be careful, because you may be just about to go into something that you're going to dedicate all of your free time to. And sometimes that can be exhausting. Sometimes it's exciting. There's a lot of good things that come out of that. But if you're going to dive into that, it's probably not going to be one business. It's going to be two. It's going to be three. It's going to continue. So number one is always be careful. But number two is really seek the experts. We have a great, I guess this is a plug for the Small Business Development Center. I also do some work for them as well. But Small Business Development Center is a great resource. It's a great starting point towards getting everything that you need, because then they're going to talk about your LLC. Does that make sense? Should you be an LLC? Should you be a sole proprietor? Should you be a C Corp or an S Corp? I mean, they're going to be able to dive into those things so that you know that you're covering all your bases. When do you get a tax ID number? What does that look like? Should you be hiring a third-party resource to be able to do it for you and paying $1,000? My answer to that is typically no. And there are a lot of them out there. Whenever you look and you do a search engine search, anybody ever heard of Google? You search on there, a lot of those first things that are going to come up that are sponsored ads are going to be companies that want to, hey, $1,500, we'll do all this for you. Well, yeah, $1,500, and then you can pay an extra $500 for 24 hours. Well, it literally takes about an hour to do. So don't waste your resources paying in that situation. Go to a free resource like the SBDC that is free. It's paid for by the SBA in tax dollars. So that's the biggest key for those kind of things. And then from there, it's understand your numbers, understand your break-even point, and have your vision. Don't allow it to be a vision that somebody else puts in your head, because when you do that and you don't feel good in the morning, if it's somebody else's vision, you're not going to wake up and drive forward. You're just going to sit in bed and say, you know what, I can do this tomorrow.
I think it takes a lot of discipline to really follow through with what you want to do anyway, because as soon as you start, a lot of people they get their vision and they know what they want to do, and then everybody starts giving them their opinions. And I think it makes people start second guessing themselves a lot.
It does.
Yeah, or the entrepreneur, like they don't see things progressing like they thought it was going to, and they just stop.
Right.
So yeah, it does take definitely the dedication and determination. And I think what you talk about is, trying to plan as much as you can. I mean, there is a part where it does take, I got to just jump in and do some things and kind of learn things the hard way sometimes. But what you've talked about is definitely probably a really good start to creating a good foundation for an entrepreneur. To really think, is this what I really want to do?
Right.
Because the last thing you want to do is get in it, and now you're having to go back and try to figure those things out.
Right.
So the more risk you can mitigate, the better off you're going to be. Or you may decide, okay, this isn't just for me. I like just being the guy who goes, punches in, punches out, and calls it a day.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not.
There's all sorts of things available that are for different people based on what they want to do. But being an entrepreneur is going to take a lot of your resources, and resources aren't just calculated based on dollars and cents. A lot of that is time.
Right.
And time you don't get back.
Right.
Tomorrow never comes back again.
Right. And I think a lot of us can look back over the years in the beginning when you're self-employed and you think, wow, if I would have only done some of that differently.
Right.
I think a lot of people do that. And I know there's a lot of family time that I missed out on that I shouldn't have, but I didn't know how to say that no word.
It's a beautiful little word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife will say you don't have to say yes all the time.
Right.
So I mean that all just ties into this. I guess she's right. That goes on record that I just said that. Yeah. So.
Don't let Nicole hear that.
No. All right. Well, I know you've probably already talked about it, but I'm going to ask because I think it bears worth repeating. So if you had to give one piece of advice that you feel like people could walk away from after listening to the show, what would you say that is? And I know be careful is probably what you're going to say. Is that, again, probably what you would reiterate?
It is. It's be careful what you ask for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants the dream and they want to chase it and they want it to come true, but there are consequences to that, and you have to be willing to accept those consequences, and it's going to cost time and resources of other elements, money, and whatever else that may look like, experiences that you're going to miss out on. But be careful and be willing to say no. There are times where you should.
Yeah.
And I like the idea, and I remember you talking about this when you were coaching me, is, write down your goals, or, it doesn't just have to be about your business, about personal life, whatever, spiritual. Put down your goals, put them on the refrigerator, put them in the mirror, put them somewhere where you're going to see them over and over again.
Right.
Because that idea is really going to stick in your head, and it's, the outcome is probably more likely to be able to occur, and just keeps motivating you to drive towards that goal. Because if you just, say you wake up on, New Year's and say, okay, these are my resolutions. And you're like, that's 1, that's 2. And you're thinking about them. It might be tomorrow you forgot. Okay. So I'm, exaggerating a little bit, but, you need to write them down. So I know that was the one big takeaway I got from that was, really setting goals and putting them in some type of form of writing where you can refer to them.
Well, and it's interesting. So resolutions, what is it? 70% of people will fail by February, and it's too It's too big of a white knuckling. Nobody goes through and starts. Well, I won't say nobody, but a lot of people don't go through and start to change those behaviors beforehand. So it's too much of a dramatic change. And when we make changes within the businesses and we make changes within ourselves, when we start to speak in that positive language, when we take the I word out of our vocabulary, which is if. And we don't say if anymore. It's all about when, because you're letting yourself off the hook. But for what reason? You're going to be equally disappointed when it doesn't work. Yeah. So you might as well fully commit to it, and don't give your brain the opportunity to just start to back up and kind of go on its heels. So you need those incremental changes, not the white knuckling 90-degree changes, which is what most resolutions are, right? Okay, it's going to be 2024 and I'm going to never eat cake. That's not going to happen, right? And so the first time somebody eats cake, then they're like, oh, well, I guess I failed. And then they just start to eat cake. Well, what if you just said, hey, I'm going to eat cake 5 times next year? Because this year I did it 7 or 8 times. Well, okay, that's an incremental change. You could do that. And eventually you make it down to 0, or you may say 2 or 3 is fine for me. But you talked about the kind of the notes, the sticky notes on the mirror and things like that. A lot of people do affirmations for that as well. And that works for some people to be able to just consistently, hey, I am great. I'm the best, whatever. I am this, I am that. For me, I found that didn't work. So I found this little book actually at the library, and I'd never heard of it, but it was a little book of affirmations. And it literally is when you ask yourself questions. And if you think about this, if you ask yourself the simplest of questions, and even if you don't want to answer it, you still answer it to yourself. You may not verbalize it, but you still answer it. So when you're asking yourself questions about why am I going to be successful, you start to answer. And you're answering in your head about the things that you can or might be doing. Well, when you write those things down, now all of a sudden you're going to create a massive benefit, because you're really starting to get a game plan for what success is going to look like and the benchmarks and the things you need to be doing. So affirmations work for some people. Affirmations, when you're asking yourself questions, I found they work for me and they work for a lot of others.
That's interesting.
I
like that tip. I think that's a great tip for everyone to walk away with, for sure. And I think it's, what you got going on is going to be a lot of success for you in everything that you're getting into. So I look forward to it. And
thank you.
But lastly, so folks that, listen to the podcast and watch the podcast, how can they get in touch with you?
So I'm easily found, silverlinecoaching.com.
Okay.
I can be emailed. I can be called. You can find me on TikTok. Choosing Adventure, I think is the label for that.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Where I do different videos for business, but I also show videos in the Jeep and
Yep, in the Jeep.
different random things. But it's really all about adventure. Life is an adventure, and you really want to embrace every moment. You can see videos of me with the Jeep out on the farm and things like that. So realistically, there's so many places that I could be found. Facebook. Don't reach me on Instagram because I'm not active there. But Facebook, TikTok, and certainly call, email, text. I'm an open book, and I really just try to help people out as much as possible. My wife is always telling me the same thing. Sometimes you can say no, and it's sometimes that works. Sometimes it's a little difficult to do. But I just love to help people. It's
Right.
where my passion
It's
is.
your nature, yeah.
If you've ever read the book, The One Thing. It's, my one thing is peace. So I like to create peace within circumstances and situations for people. And so I feel like by giving away things and providing insight and information that allows them to get a little bit more peace in their life. So that helps me too.
Well, you gave away a lot of coaching advice here today.
Good.
So, Cort, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was awesome.
Thank you.
And good luck in everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Michelle, that was Cort Maddox. That was pretty cool. I mean,
That really was. I think he put out a lot of good information that can be really helpful.
yeah, and I think relatable. I mean, you and I have been both business owners, right? So
Yeah.
I think we definitely can relate to a lot of that, and I think the listeners are gonna, really eat into that as well, because I think there's, I hear all the time folks say, I'm thinking about starting my own business. Because we come in contact with a lot of different contractors, plumbers, electricians, lawn care. It never fails, folks that I've known that you work for one of those companies or one of those contractors to say, oh, you know what, I think I can do this on my own. And as realtors, people, leave their jobs and become a real estate agent. And it's hard to explain, like, this is almost like your own business.
Right, exactly.
You're not, you have a broker, but it's not an employer. Okay, so they can't tell you need to be here, be there. It's kind of, as an agent, you kind of work on your own.
Yeah.
So you got to be really self-motivated. And if you're not taking some of these steps, to really know what it's like to have your own business, you don't fully understand what you're getting into.
Right, because it takes a lot of discipline, and it sounds like the services that he provides can help a new person get on track and stay there.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you make there is, it's not just entrepreneurs. I mean, it could also be, someone that works, on their own, like a contractor.
Right.
I think he could certainly help guide them because it's definitely, it's a competitive world out there.
It definitely is.
All right, so hey, look, if you like what you're listening to, right, or watching, I guess what can they do, Michelle?
They can hop over to YouTube. They can like, comment, and subscribe. To Realty
Let's
FC.
go ahead to trifecta. Let's do them all, right?
Let's
Give
do them all.
all.
Do them all.
Okay, we'll see you on the next one.